I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to everyone for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, as the love and support everyone shares and sends my way. From the heart, gracias. Also, do please help support the message by liking, sharing, subscribing, and hyping to the video. It really helps out a lot. Thank you. Well, everyone, getting right into what I want to share with you today. Today is it's gonna circle around Turtle from Colton, right? And a camarada per se from Eastside Colton that was representing them on the yard, and it's just this is actually, you could say, the beginnings of what we're seeing today. Is basically you do as I say, you don't question it. I don't need to present nothing, even though it's obviously wrong. You're still gonna obey by it. All that rules and regulations that we're obligated to follow, and definitely if we break one, we're gonna get our jugular cut, right? It don't apply to them. They're above the program, or should I say, camaradas? Because one thing is the program, and yes, they're minimizing the program, but at the same time, they're making it real clear that, you know, they're above camaradas. What applies to camaradas don't mean nothing to them. It don't fade them. They don't have to follow it. But anyways, let me get into it real fast. And this one is taking it back to Ironwood, right? In Ironwood, the Air Ranfla was deep, real deep, right? Don't know if it's because we were in the IE or whatever it may be. There was a lot of camaradas from IE, from all over, you know. And to be sincere, they were the most knuckleheads on the yard. They had a couple run-ins with the 805 Ranfla, with Bakersfield, with San Fernando. Well, you know, they there was just a lot of homies, from the area, and no other razas but paisas. So basically, the set tripping was real, right? Even though it wasn't permitted. But anyways, as I mentioned before, there was certain camaradas doing things for their respectful señor, and they were allowed to, right, by Tercom, as long as they would pay their proper respects, whatever it may be, right? That was up to them, as long as respects were given, right? Terco wasn't really on that trip that you have to give me a third or nothing, at least at the time. There were just so many camaradas, giving up a little gramo here, couple gramos there. It was He was getting his share good, you know, and if it helped basically keep us out of the light and let them do their own thing in case they ever, went south on them, we weren't involved directly, then it was a positive. But anyways, on this yard, the homie goes from East Side Colton. He was on the yard. And I want to say he was an older homie because he was in his late 30s, right? He was definitely older than myself, but he wasn't old like that. But he was on my own. On my own, if someone like in Mexico, when you plant corn, maize, you got lots of it. They call you Maiceron because you got money, you got feria. You got the means to make feria. That's what Maiceron basically comes down to when you refer to someone as so. But anyways, goals was to Maiceron. You know, he had a lot of homeboys, homegirls, what family members, what however. Again, I didn't really get involved like that. That was his business as long as he respected the yard. But anyways, he was under Turtle from Colton, right? And of course, Turtle was very happy with the homie because again, he was a hustler. You know, he was able to tap into things, make feria correctly, and that's really all that matters. The rest, of course, if you get sending on to a mission, you're supposed to be able to buck up and see the mission through, right? But overall, it'll be real hard for them to send you on a mission when you're bringing in Halle, you're making feria to send up to the mesa. You know, they're going to try to shield you from all that extras because that's the whole purpose of having a camarada represent a pilli on a yard, which is either control or just making feria for as long as IGI allows it, right? But anyways, excuse me. I don't really know the issues of the gangs, how they're coordinated in Colton, and but during this time there was a crib, right, that had done time with a ghost, basically as children, right, if you want to call it that, when they were young bucks, real young, and Ghost had spoke too much. He basically folded under the detective's interrogation, and he threw the crib under the bus, which the crib would end up going to YA for, right? And Gold would end up getting out. This is also to put a little insight on how a lot of people try to paint the narrative that, we don't trip about Raza telling on other races, period. And I can see when certain things like this happen, why they would take it in that sense, right? Anyways, the crib would end up bringing it up, and como siempre, hey, you can't speak ill about the homie without having, the black and white, So now that you spoke on it, though, that you're trying to accuse a homie of something that serious, you know, then we're gonna need to see that black and white, and it's not optional. You brought it out in the open, And if you can't produce that black and white, then it's a straight disrespect to the Ramfla, to the car. Anyways, he said he was be able to get it just to give him time. In the meanwhile, excuse me, I was preparing um Terco as turtle, right? That this is was being said, and Terco was like, "Let it play out." Turtle was like, "Well, let's see what happens," right? But just in the little tone that Turtle was answering, you could tell there's something there, right? And anyways, the crib would end up presenting the paperwork where it stated the Vato's name, everything, the charge they were being charged for, and exactly what he told the detectives, and basically put everything or blame the crib for everything to try to wash his hands, right? I know a lot of people can be like, hey, but they were kids. That fear effect. And I understand that point of view, but when you're game banging, there's no room for that. That's why you're always giving Klecha on what to do and what not to do. At the end of the day, it's one's own decision to join, right? And maybe, yes, some are too immature to make sense of it. Some, to be sincere, even when they're telling a detective, they're being truthful, maybe, right? And don't even realize they're actually telling on the next man. So they see no nothing wrong with it. I see many occasions play out from different scenarios. But he presented the paperwork, and it's when I pulled the vato aside, and I told him, hey, goes, I don't know what happened between you and that hermano, but he has paperwork on you, homie. I verified your name. I verified everything, and it's you, 100%. Even just doing the math, from your age now to when this happened, it all adds up. I'm just letting I'm getting at the pillis. You're aware of it. And then he turned around and told me, like, hey, how can I handle this? And I told him, dispensa, I can't get involved. I can't guide you to clean this up. You should have done clean it up when you seen the individual and you knew he had this on you because you had to know, you know. But again, people think since your kids, it gets swept under the rug. Nah, once you're a rat, it's always an escape route and it's going to always be in the mind, right? That's why there's no second chances. You can paint it in 1,000 different colors. You read it once, you're going to do it again when you have that rope around your neck, you know, and it's been proven throughout years. But here's the funny part, and now Billy's make it so obvious, right? Like I said in the beginning, that is what they say and what they want. It ain't about rules and regulations. It ain't about maintaining the gente clean. All that propaganda that they play to us to follow, and we follow it to the dot. Really think about it. You know, I got a terco. Terco advised me to get a turtle, and whatever turtle answer he will address it with turtle, right? And get an understanding going. Which in reality, I didn't feel it was my responsibility. I did my part. Terco had everything to get at his hermano, right? Cause let's just be sincere. I was a simple camarada. Their way of thought is they're above us. So I come forward with it. Hey, there's many ways you could take it, but one for sure is I'm trying to tell him what to do with his soldado. And that's a hell no when it comes to them, right? Anyways, I would tell him, I would send the paperwork, everything, and he would get back at me and told me he has heard something like this, but it don't matter. Since he was a child, he was going to be given a pass. And it didn't matter who liked it, who didn't like it. They have options, you know, and that was thrown, believe me, directly at me and them. So, when they take that high horse, because again, all that matters here is that Ghost is producing money, dope, for one, not needing the help of no pilli to touch base, to bring it in. He's doing it on his own. That's worth more than that rat jacket. Even if it was differently and it was as an adult, they would have still gave him a pass, believe me. But that's part of the responsibilities. One stays behind. I'm the one that has to explain things now to the crib, right? And I try to make time. You know, I try to make time with them and told them everything was presented, was going to be looked into, and it was going to be met with how they felt was going to be met, right? It would be taken care of, but it was a lie. It was a lie, and it's part of the description, though, of you having the responsibility, right? I didn't want an open war to protect the snitch just because he's giving out feria to a pilli, and at the same time have a bunch of camaradas mess their date, mess their program. A lot of them get whacked behind it, right? Just because we were protecting the rat. And in reality, we weren't. We just didn't have that leverage to say anything about it. You know, I don't know if I want to say God played, like I said, many parts in it, right? This one, I think it was to prevent people to get hurt. Chris was deep in Ironwood too. You can guarantee they were all gonna jump, and that includes the Bloods. You know, at that point it becomes Raza against Raza. and a lot of things were gonna be messed up. Not just what I was had going on for Terco, but as other camaradas had going on for other pillis. You know, I was trying to resolve something that there should not be no need to resolve. That vato could bring in kilos, but he's a rat. It shouldn't even be up for discussion, you know, like in other situations. Brothers presented paperwork. It was so clear. I need to get on nobody. I had individual removed because of it. And then I presented the 411 to Terco and that he was removed already to please put him on that lista, right? That this happened on your jardín. Well, I don't know again if I want to say in the group to the grace of God, whatever. But the Crips and Bloods were having conflicts, mostly in tree block, right? And just one day, it just went up amongst them on the weight pile. And guess who was there that got rolled up to the Hoyo because of the riot? The Crip that was pressing the issue. You know, in my utmost respects to the Crip, because he could have been an instigator by showing it all the Crips and Bloods. Hey, here's the paperwork and start funk. But he was showing us respect in the form of he was waiting for the answer to even speak about it with his own race. He was trusting. Unfortunately, it never came to light, at least with them, but it was a wrong decision. I know it's a proper ways to go. Same with us, right? If one of them is known to have told or done anything negative. But again, the end look on this one is how obvious they make it that when it suits them and it benefits their pocket, their veins, you can't do nothing wrong. I shared with you before there was individuals that had R's on their jackets that were hands off because of what they were bringing to the table. Here's the funny part though. I don't know what happened amongst Turtle and Terco up there in the bay, but it had already passed a while, maybe a couple months. And Terco asked me, hey, is Ghost still hitting the same? And he knew he was hitting because he was receiving respects from him, right? I told him, yeah, for Turtle, yeah. Hey, that issue got proven, right? Yeah. Make sure you put 3 on him. And they try to pull their wig. He's done. Again, something happened amongst them, right? And this was Terco's yard regardless. It's one thing, him going out his way to allow his brothers to make feria, his workers to wiggle. But another thing is for any of them to say what's going to happen on the yard. So that was what ended up happening. Ghost got hit, removed. And you know what's the best part about it? That the crib was still in the hole and seeing this happen. Because definitely that's how people start getting sore against another race. Because even though they did everything properly, it's not even the other race that don't want to handle it. It's just a bunch of individuals that work for their benefit to fatten their pockets. That's worth more than anybody. And when you try to say something, Sureños don't dictate M's program. M dictates Sureños program. Get that clear in your head. But anyways, that's saying, look, you know, it's so obvious, especially now, that, sorry I say it like this, but the majority of pillies, they're with the funnies. Straight funnies. How you gonna allow a snitch to walk amongst you just cause he's benefiting you with dope? Spread your hustle. Spread your hustle amongst good camaradas. There's no reason to put your arm around someone that's no good. But no, I mean, look at what's happening nowadays. They simply don't have to like you for how you tie your shoes, for how you wear your shorts, whatever. That they could just turn around and tell camaradas, I don't want that fool in the yard, hit him. And there's no pushback. And you know what? I'm not here to spread poison. Because in reality, when that happens, there's not going to be a pushback. I mean, come on. Let's really make sense of things. But, anyways, that's the end. Look, I hope I made sense, everyone. With this said, I send my love. Please stay true to yourself and loyal to your loved ones.